Cthulhu Reborn presents.
Welcome to Session 3 of Physiology of Acquired Taste, a scenario for the Age of Revolutions localization for Cthulhu Eternal. I'm your GM, William Adcock. Joining me today are Dean Englehart and Chad Bowser.
So, from memory, we were in a small abandoned village looking in the village church at some creepy scene inside.
Yes, you're in the village of Champs-de-Potier. You were investigating the church, which is all boarded up from the inside. You had managed to peer through a gap between two of the boards on one of the windows, and you saw a figure in priestly vestments slumped up against the altar. And I believe when we left off, you were about to try to kick the boards in.
Yes, I think we kind of realised that we weren't the strongest of characters, but the boards that were over the windows were not looking particularly strong, so we thought we might have a chance with those.
If one of you would like to roll strength for me.
Who's beefier, would you think?
Well, I don't know. Do you think 8 is beefy?
No, I said who's beefier, right? Not who's
Probably the coach driver.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a 9.
Can we approach the coach driver and just say, well, we've got a big purse here, we can just pay him to do this for us?
You're asking him to kick in the boarded window for you?
Yeah, do we have like a pry bar or something like that? Something in the carriage, that some bit of steel that might actually help to get some leverage?
Well, I mean, in this whole town, I'm sure there's leftover farm implement somewhere that we could repurpose too.
A pitchfork or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if one of you would like to roll luck for me.
You got that, Dean? Or how's your luck?
Everybody's luck's the same in this game.
I know.
I failed my luck just.
Any farm equipment you find has been exposed to the elements for decades. But the coach driver is willing to kick the boards in for you in exchange for, call it 10 francs.
He seems like the kind of guy that might have had some experience at kicking boards in anyway.
He gives a couple strong kicks, and the boards quickly begin to splinter, and before too long he's opened up a means for you to get in. And then pulling a pipe from his pocket, he starts to fill it and says, if you need anything else, I'll be at the carriage.
So, Edmund, that was a very successful endeavour in converting a few francs into some useful actions. Should we just pay him to go and explore the inside of the church as well?
Possibly. But maybe we at least have a quick glance ourselves.
Yes, that does seem to be a good idea.
As you enter the church, you discover that it looks like the interior has not been touched in 40 years. Other than a thick layer of dust and some water damage in one corner of the nave from a leaking roof, everything appears to be intact. There is a human skeleton slumped with its back against the altar, still wearing the moldering vestments of a parish priest. Next to the Bible on the altar is a personal journal.
Well, I definitely want to have a look at that.
You find the diary of Father Leonid Savatier of Champs-de-Potier.
Cool. We should probably read this out.
I do apologize, it is a little long.
Okay. Excerpt from the diary of Father Leonid Savatier of Champs-de-Potier. Forgive me, O Lord, for doing what you have commanded of me, your poor servant on earth. We found the creature after a terrible thunderstorm in which the oldest oak in the churchyard was struck by lightning. The creature was pinned under a fallen bough, its leg broken. It seemed so close to being human. Despite its crooked legs and pointed ears, its eyes were so like a man's. We took pity on the creature. We showed it mercy and kindness, as you have commanded of us in the name of Jesus Christ. The creature was carried into my home, laid upon my bed, and its injuries dressed to the best of Dr. Coulon's abilities. I kept it warm and safe and fed it. It never spoke, though its eyes spoke to the creature's intelligence. Those eyes darted suspiciously around the room, occasionally resting on me with fixed interest and visible distrust. No matter, I thought, I would earn the creature's trust as I would that of any other poor sinner. It ate little, rejecting bread and vegetables, though it took chicken and pork with some hesitation. It refused to take communion on Sunday. A week after we discovered the creature, I had fallen asleep in my chair after having performed burial services for poor Mrs. Roussel. Rousing after sunset, I discovered the creature had left my bed and crawled out the window.
We found it in the churchyard. It had dug up Miss Roussel's grave with its horrid claws, and it is too horrible to contemplate. The creature we'd shown Christ's love to was eating her. We drove the creature away into the woods and prayed that was the end of our folly. But the creature returned with 24 of its horrible kin. I believe I am the last man alive in Champdepotier. I have barricaded myself within the church in hopes that if God's forgiveness exists anywhere, it exists here. Why, O Lord, where have I gone wrong to deserve this?
Well, I'm guessing the forgiveness didn't work out so well for him.
And obviously he did not leave to get food at any point.
Admirable devotion to his beliefs, I suppose, to starve to death.
Quite the aesthetic. Yep.
Okay, what do you make of that, Edmund? Sounds like a ridiculous folktale.
It sounds to me like he might have been dipping into the communion wine too often.
But then he must have been extremely out of his senses to actually nail himself into the church, because that would take hours of work.
It would.
So perhaps he was a madman. There's been so much of it in France of late. So this was about 40 years ago. That's after the First Revolution, or about the time of the First Revolution?
About the time of the First Revolution.
Was there anything else we noticed around the inside of the church?
Nothing that's particularly eye-catching. It's a lot of dust and cobwebs and neglect. As you are pondering this diary, you both hear a man scream from outside.
Does it sound like our carriage driver?
It does indeed sound like it could well be.
Well, I guess the good side is I might be able to get some of those coins back.
I guess we have to run out there and take a look real quick. I guess, how boarded is the front door? Can we open that quickly from the inside, or can we just move a beam?
Not particularly quickly. I assume you go back out the way you came in.
That'd be quickest, I guess. What do we see?
You see the wagon tearing off into the deepening twilight, the horses in an absolute panic. Where the carriage had been, as you approach, you see a splash of blood across the ground.
I can't believe this man's insolence. We paid him to keep that carriage here.
There's some blood, though, JP.
Well, yes, indeed. So he's most careless on that front as well. Was it the man off smoking somewhere? It did seem a fiend for the pipe.
Look around. Do we see any sign of him?
Give me an alertness roll.
There we go. Jean is looking for those coins.
Yes, I found mine, but Edmund made his.
Edmund, you don't see any sign of the carriage driver, although the blood is so fresh it is still steaming in the cool, almost winter air. On the ground around it, you do notice some hoof prints. They resemble the ones that you saw behind the mortuary.
The pork squatch feet.
Yes.
Well, it seems that our thief is here as well. Looks like we found the place that all of these people have been focused upon.
So, do we think this is where the bodies were headed?
That was our original theory, although we haven't found anywhere that is an obvious storehouse for them. But it's also a bit peculiar that all of the bodies in the graveyard here seem to have been dug up, which is a little similar to that wild tale that the priest had written down. So that's a bit uncanny. We did already have a look at the churchyard. Did we actually spot an old oak tree that looked like it had maybe been hit by lightning?
Yes.
I'll point that out. So I guess that tree seems a little similar to that which was described in the beginning of that outlandish tale. So maybe it is not all fabrication, Edmund.
Possible, but lightning striking trees is not exactly your rare occurrence.
No. I'm not sure what to make of this. I do know that we're going to have trouble getting back to town.
Yeah, and how far gone are the horses? Can we see them, or are they gone?
I mean, could I send
They are-
Edmund to run after them?
They are out of sight in the darkness.
This does not bode well.
How far away is sunset?
It is probably within the next 10, 15 minutes.
Right. And it's probably a couple of hours walk back to Reims, right?
Yes.
Well, what a situation, Edmund. I fear that we're going to have to spend the night out here, so we're going to have to find somewhere a little bit more comfortable to sleep than that smelly old church.
If you have a look around, I'm sure, nothing is in any better condition. I don't think anything will suit your cultured tastes.
I'm sure that there's some chateau around somewhere, well maintained. The better classes would have looked after it a little better than these peasants that lived here. Did we notice any large houses or chateaus around the general vicinity when we drove into town?
No, you did not.
Well, that's just typical.
Well, what do you think the most comfortable place for us?
To weather the night out might be Edmund.
Reims?
Yes, but we have to walk through the night. That just sounds most distasteful as well.
Oh, you mean here?
Well, I suppose this is the reason we came all this way.
Not to circle back to this, but maybe we should find the driver.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot about him.
Yes.
We did a cursory look. I feel that we've done our due diligence.
Well, I'll yell out for him.
Oh, that's a clever idea of yours.
Yeah.
Wish I'd thought of that. Roll! Roll!
Any sign of footprints?
Just the hoof prints that you saw earlier.
And which way do the hoofprints go?
Examining the hoof prints, you're fairly certain that they represent the tracks of at least 3 individuals. And they seem to...
Based on size or...
Size and just the sheer number of tracks back and forth. There's multiple tracks of hoof prints that overlap and circle around each other. Best you can tell, they are heading back in the direction of the churchyard.
I mean, we're not far from the church at all, though, right?
Right. The carriage probably came to a stop 10, 15 yards from the church itself.
Edmund, you don't think there's somebody living in those holes in the ground? My gosh, how far have these people descended?
How deep is the hole?
This is just what happens when there is no rightful king on the throne.
Or the king drove him to it.
Yes, that's right, because he was a werewolf, right?
He was.
You believe all sorts of things. You believe anything that somebody comes along and tells you, won't you, Edmund? Such a credible sort. Well,
No, not really.
Maybe we should check out these holes again. If this is where the feet seem to be going back. But we still need to find somewhere comfortable to bed down as well. Did we actually see an inn or tavern or anything like that in the town? Is there anything like that?
You would have to take a closer look at some of the buildings. You kind of just drove into town, saw the church. It was the first immediately recognizable building.
Well, I guess we have some lanterns and things like that. We don't necessarily need to find a comfortable bed and
Would we
bottle of
have the
wine.
lanterns? Or would they have been in the wagon?
No, we actually took some out, I think, to try and see what inside because it was so dark.
I think so too.
I think we made a resources roll in the last time to get some, and I think the reason we did that was because it was so dark inside we weren't going to see anything anyway, so I'm assuming we would have taken them out.
So we'll light the lanterns, I guess. We're probably already lit, aren't they?
Yes.
Let's go check out this churchyard again before the sun goes down completely because, well, to be honest, I'm not the kind of person that's going to be out after dark doing this sort of thing again after you insisted.
So, you circle around to the churchyard. I need both of you to give me alertness rolls, please.
Not my best skill.
That's drinking.
Well, I don't even have a good carouse. That's the thing. No, looks like we both failed.
I'm not
this
alert.
round.
So you enter the churchyard and quite literally stumble over the body of your coachman.
Does he still have any coins on him?
Is it obvious that he's dead?
We'll check that as well.
He has been disemboweled, and very messily so. I need you both to roll sanity for me.
All right. Well, my little sachet's coming out and going straight into the nose as well. We both succeeded on our sand checks.
So no sanity loss, but it does look like someone might have mugged him in a search for liver rather than coins.
So the coins are still there.
But the liver is missing.
That's okay. I didn't pay him his liver. Well, that's most distasteful. But we did actually get that window open for free now.
So the wound, is it, you say messily, but does it look like it was a tooled or, done by hand or?
Go ahead and give me a first aid roll, please.
That's another awesome skill. Nope.
You're not sure if it was inflicted with a knife or other man-made object. It was done very brutally and without any sort of precision.
So not a crazy doctor then.
I'm not sure that this is a place we should be dwelling for too long.
So where else do we go?
It's a good question. Where else is there to go?
As the sun sets on your contemplation of the coachman's remains, you begin to hear scrabbling noises coming from some of the open graves. A series of low, sinister chuckling noises.
Can we hide behind any tombstones or something similar?
Or get in the church?
Certainly. Give me stealth rolls if you want to hide.
Also not my strong suit, but let's give it a go. Nope. Attempted stealth and failed.
You see a half dozen slouching humanoid figures with very long faces and hanging jowls and pointed ears, pulling themselves out of the open graves, sniffing the air, and looking at you with eyes that reflect the lantern light redly. Sanity checks, please.
Well,
Nope,
Chad
I did not.
and I both failed our sand checks this time around.
I need both of you to roll a d6 for how much sanity you lose.
That's a 6.
Yay! Oh, and I've got a 2.
And I don't think that brings either one of you below your break points.
No, but I think losing more than 5 might do something. It won't generate a disorder, but I think it might send Chad off screaming into the night. But I'll take my 2.
Yes, so Edmund is going to experience a bout of temporary insanity. In a moment of overwhelming stress, your protagonist loses self-control. So your brain switches to pure panic with one of 3 possible responses: flee, struggle, or submit. Edmund, what do you think you would be most likely to do in this situation?
Honestly, I think flee.
That's actually what I was going to do anyway. So let's just leg it for the church. I scream out.
So can I push Jean-Paul in the direction of the red eyes and run for it?
Oh, mean. I am quite portly.
How about you roll an unarmed combat roll for me, please, to see if you can...
No.
So you make a valiant effort to push Jean-Paul down, but fail to do so and take off running for the church.
What an affront. But I think I might take his example and also turn and run for the church.
The creatures begin to bay like hounds and, dropping to all fours, give chase. They quickly catch up to the two of you, seemingly unhindered by the broken and uneven ground of the churchyard. But they don't attack.
Well, that's probably just as well, because I don't think we bought any guns or anything. Did we, Edmund?
No, we did not. We came prepared.
The creatures crowd around you, sniffing noisily and wetly at you. One of them makes eye contact with Edmund and says in rough French, "Doctor, not doctor." And then one of the ones sniffing Jean-Paul, likewise, "Doctor, not doctor." They begin to drag you back in the direction of the churchyard.
Can we resist that?
Yes.
Yes.
And what was the name of the doctor from the
Bouchard.
notes? Dr. Kolshard?
Kulan.
Gulan?
Kulon.
Kulan was the one mentioned in the letter.
Right.
Right, 40 some odd years ago, right?
Yeah.
But I will ask, are you looking for Dr. Coulon?
They stop and look at you kind of curiously, and the six creatures begin to converse among themselves in a language of yips and snarls and grunts and gestures. One of them kind of awkwardly pulls itself up to its full height and squares its shoulders back and says, "You're not the doctor,
No,
but you
I'm
know the
not.
doctor.
Do I know this doctor?
We know lots of
talk-
people.
You talk with leader. He decide what do.
Who
He
is your
work with
leader?
Doctor.
I guess we talk to your leader then, I suppose. He must be a reasonable man or whatever if he's got a position of authority. So I suppose we'll go with them, Edmund. Is that
How am I reacting to this in my state of...
freaking out probably? Although it only lasts a few minutes, so I think they're temporary.
okay.
And two of them have you by the arms. They've relaxed a little bit while you're conversing, but they are very clearly ready to escort you.
Yeah, where are they taking us?
They lead you back towards the center of the churchyard, where a particularly large creature has pulled itself up from the underground warrens and is making itself comfortable against a tall family tombstone, kind of absent-mindedly scratching itself as it gets comfortable. It's probably about 50% larger than any of its fellows, morbidly obese, and there's almost nothing that seems human at all about it. These other ones, you can almost see humanity in them, but this one, stained tusks jut from its elongated lower jaw. The flared nostrils at the tip of his muzzle spout jets of vapor in the cold November night air. His eyes glow like hot coals within deep-set sockets, and long, pointed ears twitch at every sound. He looks at you both, eyes narrowing. He converses with some of the smaller creatures for a moment in that barking, yipping language. And then he chuckles in rusty, archaic French. He says to the two of you, "And what do you have to say for yourselves? What do you hope to find here? And why shouldn't I tell my pack to tear you to bits?"
Well, I believe that you are a reasonable man, and you are the king of these people. So I believe that you will always behave with mercy and compassion, as all good rulers, like good Charles, want to do. Divine right will actually ensure your benevolence.
He actually bursts out laughing at this and says, "Times have very much changed if kings are merciful."
Oh, were they not in your day? Please, pray tell your story.
He sits back and takes a deep breath as he composes himself, and he finally says, "In 1432, I butchered children for the Baron de Ray.
Okay, well, we'll look shocked. Well, I will.
I suppose that is where I left my humanity behind."
I fear that we have not introduced ourselves. My name is Jean-Paul.
I am Edmund Jourdan.
The creature kind of stares off into the middle distance for a moment and says, "You may call me Diogenes. It is as good a name as any other. I
Very
must
close.
ask, you are acquaintances of Dr. Bichard, are you not?"
We have spoken with that good man recently, yes. Why, what is his relation to you and your fine group of people here?
"We have received his offering,
Hmm?
a few days late perhaps, but nonetheless. So I must ask if you are here on his behalf."
Not his behalf, but perhaps we are interested in making a similar bargain, since perhaps even increasing the deal to your benefit. We feel that having spoken to Dr. Bouchard, that he's perhaps shortchanging you on the deal.
Diogenes laughs again, a very full-throated, wet, phlegmy sound, and clapping his paws together, says, "Ah, I knew humanity has not changed in 400 years. Yes, your presence here shows me that Bouchard has been sloppy. I cannot help but suspect that the good doctor's conviction of mankind's inherent nobility may have hampered his ability to provide what he is contractually obligated to provide."
And I'll burst into laughter now. It's like, is that his naive plan?
You would have to ask him yourself. His high-minded reasoning made little sense to me.
Pray tell,
But-
what are the specifics of his deal with you? And I'm sure that we can strike a better one.
12 corpses a month in exchange for being allowed to draw blood from my people here for medical experimentation.
Let me just confer with my good partner here. I think, based on what we have seen before, that Bouchard is in serious danger of betraying your existence to the world, which I think would be most deleterious to everyone. So I think perhaps you should sign up with us and we will take care of Bouchard and also give you a superior deal.
By all means.
Now, Edmund, let's have a quick side chat.
Yes.
What the heck's
Quick
going
side
on?
check. Yes, I'm wondering if maybe I think I left my wallet at home.
Point purse is
Yeah,
okay.
I think I'm just going to run back to Martinique and get it.
No.
At
You
this
don't.
point-
You don't understand. Yes, these are most.
Unconventional kinds of parties to be dealing with, but I think the basics of striking a bargain are not so different. I feel that we can perhaps negotiate ourselves out of this situation.
Uh-huh.
I mean, all we have to do is basically get them to agree to let us go. We can go back to Reims and then come up with some clever plan to totally not get killed.
Yeah.
Or perhaps we can both go to Martinique.
Yes, because honestly, I think just offering them more bodies in exchange for their blood really isn't going to do anything, is it? But I'm guessing.
Well, what is it that they want? Is it just bodies? Is there something else that they're looking for? I mean, what's their motivation?
You would think if they live underground and they could just burrow from burial ground to burial ground, right?
Well, sounds like they've cleaned this one out, though. So
I mean,
I
they
guess
could just burrow their way to another one, and
maybe their philosophy is just like us, and the coachmen outsource the work.
possible. I don't think just offering them more bodies in exchange for their blood is really going to be that tempting to them, because you've not proven yourself as a provider of corpses yet. You have to prove your intention to be a successful corpse monger.
I think maybe that we might be able to convince them to take us on trust, at least to make the first month's fitments or something like that. I feel that this is perhaps our best chance, because I don't think that we can run back to Reims faster than they can.
No, I don't think that's possible.
Or even possibly run back to the church faster than they can. So I think maybe bargaining and parleying with these people is perhaps, or these, whatever they are, is perhaps our only way out of this difficult situation. And to be frank, I need to get back for an urgent bottle of wine somewhere in Reims before the morning, hopefully. All right.
So what do you want to offer them?
Well, let's find out what they want. So, Mr. Diogenes, I think my fellow entrepreneur and I are very interested in getting into business with you.
Obviously, Bouchard, the buffoon that he is, could really only offer some very simple things because he had very limited accesses to resources and bodies, I guess. Yes, that's basically some simple things that he could do for you. But is there more that we might offer that might be appealing to you? I have access to the entire government of Reims.
Diogenes kind of chuckles and says, "My people want corpses of any freshness delivered to us here in Champdeportier."
Can I ask what you do with the corpses?
He leans in close, and you
That's a terrible
get a
breath.
whiff of his breath as he says, "We eat them."
Oh,
Oh, I guess that's not so different to farming, really.
And We have gotten used to the bounty of having corpses delivered right to our doorstep.
Modern conveniences that they are. Yes, I can see the appeal. Well, if that's literally all that you want, as somebody who has the city of Reims in his pocket, providing such would be not difficult since we have the resources of all of the cemeteries in Reims at our disposal. Is that not true, Edmund?
It is indeed. But let me ask you this. I noticed that you did make a meal of our coachman, and you took his liver. Is it just the liver that you seek?
No.
You know, when John Paul here gorges himself on chicken liver, is it just a delicacy for him?
Your driver was ambushed by some of our younger and more impetuous packmates. All of him will be eaten in time. They had just begun to dig into their victuals when you startled them.
Can I ask just one small question? How did Dr. Bouchard first come to discover you?
He encountered one of our kind many years ago and became obsessed, began to research what he could, legends, historical accounts, and he deduced that there was a pack of us here in Champ-de-Potier.
Mm.
I believe he was calling us the horrible men when he
so
first
insulting.
found out about us.
So insulting.
But after discussion with myself, he convinced himself that, as it stands, we are superior to humanity in every way. The old ways of undergoing apotheosis that we practice were not good enough for him. No, a modern man of the enlightened era in which we reside had to have something better, something cleaner.
Mm. You mentioned drawing of blood. Does he come out here and do that barbaric thing himself?
Oh, yes.
Can you believe that, Edmund?
I do not take either of you as medical men.
Speaking as one aristocrat to another, you are literally the ruler of this prosperous group of people or township, one might say, that you have built around you. Very impressive achievement. And I think speaking as one that has some nobility in with inferior human species that you talk to, I think you should recognize in me and my friend here the opportunity to deal with like-minded people that won't completely steal your precious blood for literally nothing. The deal that you have struck is so in the doctor's favor that I feel that it's almost insulting to you. Surely we can do better for you.
I agree.
So, what I suggest...
Here is what I have to offer you. If you will take over the delivery of corpses, I can ensure you a steady stream of jewelry, timepieces, gold teeth, all the treasures of Hades delivered right into your hands. I think, if I read you correctly, sir, that will appeal to your interests so much more.
Well, yes, a bit more of somebody that deals in the finer senses in life rather than riches. But riches have their place. I guess, Edmund, you probably wouldn't understand, but I think we are very much of a like mind. I feel that my partner and I here would be more than willing to take your offer and take over this arrangement, and perhaps also Dr. Bouchard might be somebody that we can deliver unto you to do with as you please, for being such a poor partner, and to be frank, a perfectly sloppy partner, since that is the only way that we discovered you was his poor practices. So surely we should be bringing him to you to have your justice dealt out on him.
Diogenes rises to his hooves, chuckling. You see, as he rearranges himself, gets up, He has the limb proportions of an orangutan. He cannot stand just on his own 2 feet. He knuckle walks with these enormous, scaly, clawed hands. He chuckles and he reaches out and squeezes Jean-Paul's shoulder and says, "You remind me of me in my youth."
Oh, what a
And you
compliment.
get a sense of just how big he is.
Mm-hmm.
Even knuckle walking, his eyes are level with yours, Jean-Paul. He is enormous.
I take the compliment. I think that I'm so pleased that we have such an affinity. Perhaps my partner Edmund and I should make haste back to Reims, find the doctor, and begin our deal for you.
Yes. Bring me the doctor to cement our partnership, and then we can discuss the terms of your contract.
The doctor, to be honest, I think deserves everything that's coming to him for his scientific charlatanry. He actually was passing off this as a discovery of his own, whereas it's your discovery, if anybody's.
If you do a good job, perhaps I will welcome you into our ranks.
You hear that, Edmund?
Think about
yeah,
it.
I mean, you can have all of the wonderful delicacies that you can stomach.
Yes.
You will not grow old. You will not feel sickness.
Well, I think we have a deal. Let's just leave Edmund before he changes his mind.
I say we do go. I guess we are walking back to Reims.
Quickly.
Yep.
You are escorted back to the main road, but once you're back on the main road to Reims, you are on your own.
So, Edmund, tell me about Martinique.
It's a beautiful island, really. It's sunny.
Long way away?
It is.
How often do boats sail for there, do you think?
Well, I'm sure maybe from a major port regularly.
Well, maybe...
Daily?
What would be the closest port, do you think?
From Reims?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. That would be far away, unfortunately. But if we keep walking, we can be there in a few months.
Well, I think we just have to walk. We just have to walk back to Reims and then maybe cash in all of our credit and maybe be on our way.
Yeah, I mean, we might be able to sail from Calais
Yeah.
or Bruges, Rotterdam, head up into the Low Countries and leave from there.
Okay. Well, those all sound like very pleasant options. But since we've actually effectively completed this assignment from the original party that hired us, perhaps we should go back and tell them that we're finished and collect any rewards they may wish to give us.
Yeah, I was going to say, should we perhaps tell our good friend at the gendarmerie that there are a group of cannibals living in holes up in this abandoned town, and it might be good to have him get in touch with the army?
That's perhaps a good idea, but perhaps we should square away our affairs first, just in case.
Well, maybe we write him a letter.
That sounds like a good idea.
Greetings from Martinique.
Yes, glad you're not here. So I guess we'll walk back to town. We'll try and find Gautier, put on a good face, and say that we've actually solved the mystery of Desjardins' corpse going missing, explain to him what's happened. Just suggest that we've done such an amazing job, he should reward us bountifully.
You present yourself at Gautier's and tell him what exactly?
Well, the theft of Desjardins' corpse was a combination of a mix-up and a despicable act by a mortuary worker that thought that he was playing some cruel joke against the aristocracy by swapping his body in with that of a regular shipment of nefarious corpses that were basically being supplied to some doctor for despicable purposes. And in fact, we can give you the name of the doctor. He's doing something terrible with these corpses and producing some elixir from the things that he is stealing. And unfortunately, Desjardins' remains were caught up in this disgusting plot. That's what we're telling.
All right.
Which isn't
So
untrue.
You present your evidence that Bichard is illegally buying corpses and is working through at least one mortuary. Gautier takes this information to the gendarmerie with a quiet threat of releasing this information to the press if it is not followed up on. Bichard is arrested, as is Claude and Bruno, and
That Claude particularly deserves it.
Guillaume, the funeral home director. And upon further investigation, ultimately a half dozen funeral home directors are arrested for taking part in this conspiracy. They are swiftly tried and found guilty and are hung for their crimes. Although the gendarmerie never determined where Bichard was taking the bodies. For your role in busting up this illicit grave robbing ring and network of corpse dealers, the two of you are rewarded handsomely, not just by the city government, but by the king himself for your services to the state.
Well, that's very nice. Although, to be honest, the current incumbent of the throne also makes me think about possibly a life in Martinique might be better.
You are entirely free to retire to Martinique if you desire.
Yes, please. In fact, I'll spend the next days basically liquidating as much of my wealth as I can, and sell any property I got, just cash everything in, and maybe a week or so later, plan to sail for the colonies.
6 months later, Jean-Paul, you are sitting on a beach in Martinique, drinking some chilled wine, and you happen to notice a commotion on the nearby docks. You see two sailors kind of come to blows, and one man's hat is knocked off. And it seems to you that his face seems a little long and his ears seem a little pointed.
So is my good friend Edmund still with me?
I don't know where I am at this point. My plan was also to collect my fiancée and move back to Martinique.
So you have definitely returned to Martinique, although whether you spend time drinking on the beach with Jean-Paul is your own call.
Either way, once I've seen even just the sight of this sailor, I'm going to scurry off to find my good mate Edmund and say, so are there other islands here as well?
There are many. Why do you ask?
Well, I've always wanted to tour them all, maybe, some months on each, and move on when the need arises, if you get what I mean.
Well, would you like to go to Montserrat?
Yes, that sounds most appealing. It's not here.
No, it isn't.
I think this is the perfect place to draw this scenario to a close.
Absolutely.
There we go. We've got a perfect life on the run. Well, that was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Have you perhaps considered maybe an aquaborne lifestyle? You're the first houseboatman.
Well, I don't really like to see that much, but,
I was going to ask, what's the inspiration for this scenario?
So there was a couple things that kind of got rolled together. There's a 1980 film called The Monster Club, starring John Carradine and Vincent Price. And one of the segments of that film, because it is an anthology, is about a village that is overtaken by ghouls. And actually the priest's handout in the church is more or less taken directly from that. I mixed that in with elements of Burke and Hare, as you've probably guessed, and there was a quack doctor in the 1920s who performed experiments with implanting goat testicles into convicts to cure low testosterone.
Right. You know, I did spot the goat testicle
Brinkley?
grafting.
John Brinkley?
Yes, that's
I
the
was-
one.
I was also going to ask, Bill, how did you find writing for the Age of Revolutions SRD?
Not too difficult. I keep the SRD open while I'm writing as I need to consult with it. I didn't find the time period too difficult to write for.
So maybe I'll ask you and Chad as well. What do you like about this period of history for setting Lovecraftian stories?
I guess I can go first. One thing is, I mean, a lot of the hallmarks of the time period really are also kind of captured in Hammer films. So and that's obviously not Lovecraftian, but you get a lot of the visual touchstones of, the heavy overcoats and all that. And it's also, tail end of Age of Enlightenment, and you're seeing some romanticism creep out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an intellectual melange of science and pseudoscience.
Yes, I really like the push and pull between the Enlightenment and the Romantic movement that sprung up in response to it. I feel like that fits really well with the sort of worldview that Lovecraft espoused, especially like in that classic first paragraph of The Call of Cthulhu, with the sciences all straining in their different directions.
Yeah, I guess in some ways he was kind of like a bit of a throwback, or his attitudes were sort of a bit of a throwback to some of those sort of earlier times as well. He kind of really admired the Edgar Allan Poe era of thinking rather than his own era that he lived in, really.
Mm.
One of the things I was impressed with about this particular scenario as well is it's an interesting historical setting as well, because the original French Revolution is obviously interesting, but has been done a fair bit in films and TV, and also I guess in role playing a little bit. But this is a bit different again because of the complex political situation. It's an area of history that probably most people don't know that much about. So how did you go about picking that and also researching that?
So one of the clues you missed, because you didn't go into Bichard's lab and read his notes, he was a veteran of the retreat from Moscow. And that was actually my starting point, was he was a veteran of the retreat of Moscow, and he encountered ghouls for the first time as they were picking off wounded stragglers. And so looking ahead in the years that followed and looking for a time period that lent itself to, there being background conflict, 1830 ended up jumping out at me for the glorious Revolution of July. One of the things I watched in preparation for writing this scenario was Les Mis.
Well, I was going to say is, I mean, just to, play to type and stuff, there is also an excellent 1980s song that you can tie into this scenario, Dean, for all of your listening pleasure.
And what's that?
You've probably heard it quite a bit being in Australia, but it's by an Australian band called Hunters and Collectors.
Mm-hmm.
And the song is called Holy Grail.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And it's technically about Napoleon's invasion of Russia and failed ingress and egress from Moscow.
Okay. I thought you were going to go with Hunters and Collectors, throw your arms around me and talking about the orangutan arms.
That one too.